Macklin Celebrini's 40-point start through just 27 games puts him on par with the absolute greats of the National Hockey League in terms of U20 scoring rates. You're talking about the GRETZKYs, the LEMIEUX, the CROSBYs, and Macklin Celebrini is pushing them all for it. We analyze his game on today's show.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And once again, today we are focusing on the San Jose Sharks. We're making it a hat trick of episodes focusing on San Jose because they've been one of the best storylines in the league here as of late. And that game against Utah was absolutely wild, where Will Smith is now at a point-a-game rate on the season. Macklin Celebrini continues to force his way into the record books. And the Sharks are looking like a dynamic, if imperfect, team that can really push the best of them in terms of talent and creativity and just high-end scoring threat, which is something that would have felt very foreign to any Sharks fan to say at the point where Mike Grier took over this team a few years ago. And just the amount of distance that this rebuild has covered, this is now one of the more exciting teams to watch in the entire National Hockey League on their night. And Celebrini's been a massive part of that. So we'll be breaking down the statistics that are just absolutely insane and historical for Celebrini so far this season, and really pushing his way into the record book conversation. And we'll also be kind of talking about reading out and responding to some comments left on the previous couple shows from San Jose Sharks fans, just to kind of keep the conversation going through the episodes, and let me know what the next Sharks episode is that you want to hear from me, because I will be talking about some other teams here over the course of this week and next week. But once I do return to the Sharks in conversation again, I would love to have some episode idea suggestions or just topics that you would like me to explore. But yeah, that's the outlook here for today's show. And before we dive into everything, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. So, Celebrini, man, he sits second in the National Hockey League in scoring here at the time of recording, with 40 points in 27 games, 14 goals, 26 assists, 1.48 points per game. That's a number we're going to be talking about a lot here in the first segment. 1.48 points per game. That is absurd level production that we do not see all that often from a player that's a U22, let alone a 19-year-old who isn't turning 20 until the next offseason. Like, he is a true 19-year-old here this season, and already figures among the highest scorers in the National Hockey League, sandwiched between Nathan MacKinnon and Connor Bedard, and Connor McDavid is right hot on their heels as well, with Leo Carlsson trailing behind them. There's a lot of young talent now really pushing these elite guys that had entrenched themselves over the course of the last decade as the unquestionable top scorers in the league. Guys like Kucherov, of course, players like McDavid as well. But it's so great to see some young blood really pushing it up in these rankings now as well, in terms of NHL production. But what I kind of wanted to talk about here is how unprecedented it is for a player this young to be doing things like this at any point in time in NHL history. With this game against Utah, Celebrini became only the fourth teenager in National Hockey League history to reach 40 points in 27 or fewer games, joining Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Sidney Crosby. And then, if you were to go look at all-time U20 seasons in points per game, number one, Wayne Gretzky's 19-year-old season. Number two, Wayne Gretzky's 18-year-old season, because, of course, it's still the great one up there. Number 3, Sidney Crosby's 19-year-old season, his second in the league, where he had 120 points in 79 games. That's 1.52 points per game. And at number 5, you have Mario Lemieux's rookie season at 19 years old with 100 points in 73 games. But sandwiched right between the two Pittsburgh Penguins, you've got Macklin Celebrini this year. And that rate is not necessarily going to be sustainable all year long, right? I mean, the company here is literally top 5 players in league history who dominated out of the gate when they hit the league as teenagers. Celebrini being in that conversation almost a third of the way through the season, I think is quite remarkable with what he's been doing here so far this campaign. I watched the game against Utah, and Celebrini can just dominate a shift completely. And he's a player that can exploit so many different holes in so many different ways. He's incredibly unpredictable. He can cut hard down to the middle of the ice, taking the puck there from the boards. He's able to attack at variable speeds, quickly changing from his first gear to his second to his third. He's really quick in changing his speeds and very manipulative with how he's able to put defenders on their heels, hit the brakes, use that space that opens up. The intelligence, the pace of thought, everything with Celebrini is really quite special, what he's been showing here this season, and a real joy to watch, just from perspective, also coming from a scout and I watched him in his his D-1 season when he was playing with the Chicago Steel. I watched him a fair amount that year, and he was lights out. He was brilliant. I fell in love with the way he plays the game of hockey, and immediately just saw a guy with first overall written all over him. And as much as I liked Ivan Demidov throughout his draft year, I've always been really high on him. He was always closer to 1 than he was to 3 on my board. He was at second overall for my first private board that I had just for myself in the middle of July, a year before being drafted, all the way through to draft day. That order was set. Celebrini at 1 and Demidov at 2, but there's a reason I kept Celebrini at 1. He's a player that can do everything at an elite level. He has that defensive ceiling that I think still extends so much higher than where he's at right now. His face-off numbers, I'm sure, are going to improve from the 47% that they're at this season. He's going to find every single way possible in order to create advantages for his team. And year after year, he's always a player where if I've ever had a little bit of a gripe with just a tiny area, if I'm nitpicking his game, because it's always been a question of nitpicking rather than true critique, because he's always just been so well-rounded and dominant at pretty much every single level he's played. But whenever I have had those gripes, fast forward a year and it's erased. It's more often than not become a strength in his game, and that ability to assess himself, identify his own weaknesses, and not just content himself with bringing him up to match the rest of his game, but the almost chip on your shoulder type of attitude of, I'm going to turn this into a strength now. That's something I have a whole bunch of respect for. And we've seen that over the course of time, where he used to be really a shoot first player, and the playmaking, the vision and the skill as a passer are always there, but the timing and the decision making of when to pass and when to hold onto the puck and when to shoot, that in his D-1 season especially was something that irked me a couple times over the course of the year. At this point, that's not in a million years a critique that you're going to be giving Celebrini. And he's a 19-year-old playing in the National Hockey League, leading a first line of a team that's doing better than expectations so far this season. And he has just become one of the most dominant players in the entire Western Conference this season. I mean, he's been up there. I mean, of course you have the Avalanche stars. Of course you have the Oilers stars. After them, I'm not sure if there's who would be a player that's been more dominant than Celebrini over the course of this season. He's really been phenomenal to watch, and something I know that a lot of Sharks fans love with this player as well is that the balance in his game of being able to create off the cycle, be one of the top transition creators in the National Hockey League in terms of like zone entry rate. I think he still is among the top 3 or top 5 players league wide so far in his career since entering into the NHL. but also bring in stable defensive performances and work hard and connect plays between his wingers, not trying to overextend or do everything on his own. He's really effective as a link-up guy. He's at his best playing off of teammates, and he has teammates that he's able to play off of now. Like, the Sharks have got some talent up and down the lineup, whether it be veterans like Tyler Toffoli, who plays the game just so intelligently and is the perfect kind of veteran presence to mentor young players. I mean, he showed that off massively in Montreal with guys like Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, and he moved on and, of course, did the similar thing with some young players in Calgary and then New Jersey. He's done this everywhere he's been, and I have a lot of respect for him. But beyond him, of course, you have guys like Will Smith, who's at a point of game now. You have William Eklund, who's been showing his high-end flashes of skill as per usual. And there's just so much to be excited for in San Jose. And, of course, as we've been talking about here in the last couple episodes, a whole bunch of talent down the system as well in the AHL, guys like Quentin Musty and Igor Chernyshov. It's a bright future in the Bay there, and I think that Celebrini is going to be, I think, as a lot of commenters put it as well, the messiah that's been prayed for so long, ever since the Thornton and Marlowe era kind of, and Pavelski era. I'll throw Pavelski in there; he was equally important. Since that era came to a close, it's been a waiting game for a player that can put the team on his back, and that is the foundational stone of the house, the team that you want to build. And Celebrini's just been showing night in, night out that he is precisely that. But that wraps up this first segment. In the next one, we're going to start broaching some of your comments, because you left a lot on the last couple episodes. If you are a Sharks fan, I appreciate the engagement and the conversations continuing after I post the episode. But before we do that, a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, my energy, and even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day may look like. Drip Drop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands, using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard, and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. All right, let's keep this show rolling here in the second segment as we start digging into some of your comments, because I believe there were 40 comments, 40 comments on the most recent episode, breaking down the young core at all levels of the organization there in San Jose. Of course, highlighting guys like Celebrini, but Askarov as well. And it was a fun, long show that you're welcome to go check out. It's the most recent upload before this one here on the channel. But let's kick things off here with a comment from Magic Trev 88 saying, "The ascension of Celebrini has been surreal. It's so hard to wrap my head around how someone can do this at 19 years of age." And I think that's kind of the core idea that I keep coming back to when I watch Celebrini. It's just slight disbelief of how a player this young can be both this effective, dynamic, and responsible and mature at this young of an age. He plays like a 27-year-old prime vet. Next, we've got a comment from Andy Stover saying, "One guy that didn't get mentioned in this episode that I think should is Colin Graff." I fully agree. I think he actually should have gotten a mention there in my episode. "The kid is an absolute Swiss Army knife. You can stick him anywhere and not have to worry about him dragging a skill line down, or getting outmatched in the top 6, or getting outworked in the bottom 6. He just does it all, even if he's not producing crazy point totals. He's been a complete game changer to the penalty kill, so much so that Dimitri at the PDO cast did a compilation of his PK highlights. Mind you, this was 3 weeks ago, and still got 3.5 minutes of PKing highlights just from this season. I do think he's another level. He has another level to his offensive game that could lift him up to a 45 to 50 point season or two in his career. But overall, I'd say his best comparable is a guy like Andrew Cogliano, just a guy that does everything right." I like this. I think that Andrew Cogliano is a really interesting player comp. I think that with both him and Colin Graff, You have a player that has enough skill to be able to match up with high skill guys up the lineup if you need him to, has a speed to play at that level as well, but also, again, has that defensive ability, both in the detail and the work rate, and overall just the dog in him to play bottom six really effectively. And you need players like that. You can't just have soft skill guys that do little pretty things with the puck on their sticks. You need guys that are direct, that can forecheck, that can back check, that put their body on the line to defend. And I fully agree that that Colin Graf could be a player like this for a very long time in San Jose. Next comment is from Wes the Best saying, Sebastian, keeping the great content rolling on Sharks Prospect. Cheers, mate. I appreciate it. I'm enjoying doing this on Sharks players, and I'm just happy that the Sharks are good and I can watch them and enjoy it. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances who are Sharks fans, and I love talking about the Sharks with them. And ideally, I actually have some research underlying those conversations, having actually watched the team. And the last couple seasons, I've got to say, there were a couple of years where that was a bit rough to keep up with, but this year's not been one of those. I've really been enjoying even just on a night, if there's a hockey game on and there's nothing else that I feel like watching, and I see that a Sharks game playing, I'm very happy just tuning into that and kind of just enjoying my evening because they've been so entertaining with so much young skills here this season. So I'll definitely keep the content rolling because I'm watching them more and more. So the better they play, the more they're going to be in my personal focus as well. Next, we have a comment from Fox to Charlie saying, I've been a Sharks fan since 1994, and I am insanely excited. We have had no shortage of exceptional players on our team. We were so lucky as fans to get such a competitive team for so long. But GMDW had to build that team mostly through trades and free agent signings. We weren't really a homegrown team built out of the draft. Greer has made some really shrewd moves. The youth is developing well. We have a generational talent and a goalie the likes of which we have never had. I love Ilya Nabokov, but Askarov, I think, will eventually become the Sharks' best goalie ever. Yeah, I think that there's certainly a chance that this ends up being the case because he's among the most individually skilled netminders I've ever scouted in terms of how athletic he is, how explosive he's able to get from post to post, how well he tracks the puck now as well. It's become a strength that used to be a bit more erratic in his game, and he's really taken these years to develop that into something that he's stronger at than average. And he just looks so confident in that. And having a composed and confident netminder takes such a weight off of a team's shoulders. You can just play your game. You're not worried about a leaky puck going back the other way here or there. You can just play. And if a mistake happens, you kind of trust the guy you got back there to deal with it and bail you out when you need him to. Next, we have a comment from Crichton09 saying, what amazes me about the Sharks is that their key prospects seem to be excelling in their respective levels. That doesn't mean they'll all be great and build a super team, but the pipeline is coming along so smoothly so far. And for it to be that many players, that's pretty rare. I agree. There are not that many teams in the NHL that have the type of depth through their prospect pool like the San Jose Sharks do. I think you're talking the Montreal Canadiens, you're talking the Chicago Blackhawks. Maybe there's another one or two teams that really compete for that, but it's not many at all. Next, Ian Hall writes, Celebrini has been a complete game changer for the Sharks. Makes the past half decade worth it. Absolutely. You are hopeless. Happy philosophy there. Writes, Polkamp is low-key Orlov 2.0. Yeah, I think honestly, maybe a bit less defensive upside than Orlov. I think Orlov's been a really engaged defensive piece for a long time. Maybe a bit less at this stage of his career. He's a bit more offensive leaning nowadays, I think. But Polkamp's got an absolute howitzer of a shot. He's able to be kind of deployed in every situation. He's really physical. That's another combination in terms of both Orlov and Polkamp are similar size and both have a heavy shot and play super physically. That is a lot more than perhaps their 6 foot or 5'11" frame would give them credit for. Justin Palumbo writes, been a San Jose Sharks fan since I was 4. Mac is the savior the faithful have been waiting for. What impressed me the most is how much winning means to him. When we lose, no one takes it harder, even if he had a good night. That competitiveness is really, I think, one of the things that separates the absolute elite from the star players in the National Hockey League. The players that just put everything on the line and feel everything incredibly strongly on the ice, the ones that where it physically hurts to lose. Those are the guys I think that have an advantage in terms of becoming those separators in the NHL. And Macklin oozes that kind of philosophy and that approach to hockey through and through. Then we've got a comment on multiple players from JL35967. To touch on Dickinson, Misa, and Mukhamadullin personally, I think the coaching staff is using kid gloves with them. Dickey and Mukhamadullin should never be paired together, but it's happened a couple times already, and Misa needs to be our 2C. I love Venberg, but he will be traded this year, I think. Really excited for Chernyshov and Musty. I could see them both up here during the course of this season as call-ups. And McKinney is a 3C, has 3C grinder written all over him. Yeah, I pretty much concur on all fronts there. I think Misa should, when healthy, when he's back from his conditioning stint now in the AHL, really be a top 6 piece. He needs puck touches. And I think that if given those reps, he's going to repay you tenfold. And same thing, like Dickinson, Mukhamadullin, I agree. They are both erratic in their decision making at this stage, and I think both are best suited with more of a veteran presence to help them along, or a younger vet who's just very calm and stabilizing, because both of them have their moments for sure. Next, we have a comment from Bill94803 saying, excited for the Sharks. I've been a fan since their inception. So fun to see the new blood play and develop. The cream is rising. It is. Nathan Prime 6 writes, as a longtime San Jose fan, Celebrini completely saved this franchise, and his rise has made the tanking worth it. It's so gratifying at the end of a long, painful tank, multiple years of rebuilding, to see it all coming together, and you see the just blindingly bright glimpses of what the future is going to look like for that team. Sophia M writes, Celebrini is truly incredible. Nothing else to say. Will Smith has flashes, has amazing flashes when he's confident. I would like to see Misa more. Not really seen enough of him even before his injury. He had some good chemistry with his line that he was on. Mukhamadullin has been a bit up and down this season, but I think his confidence has taken a hit. Any mistake made, and he is benched or scratched. If I remember right, there were a couple of games he was scratched in November. Dickinson is making a few rookie mistakes, but I think he learns from them quickly and bounces back. He only got one shot on the power play, but would like to see him get more chances there. I think he struggles with confidence issues, the same as Mukhamadullin, due to the coaching decisions. Askarov has just been incredibly lately. He is amazing when he's feeling good and confident. How many times can I use that word? It really does just make a massive difference though, for these players, in my opinion. The Shark games have been so exciting here this season. And yeah, I think that excitement is really the thing that maybe stands out the very most with the Sharks here this campaign. There's just so much going in the right direction for this lineup. And yeah, I can definitely see the excitement just pouring out of every single one of these comments, where it would be just as easy as well for a Sharks fan to come in here and be like, okay, yeah, we have a lot of these high-end talents in our lineup, but it hasn't fully come together yet. We need to get better. Let's sell off some of like the guys that aren't in the NHL yet to get over that hump. And now that Celebrini's going at 100%, let's double down on that and start winning right away. Try to like shorten that road to contention a little bit. But I think that every single fan here seems to just have fully embraced now of like, the painful rebuilding years are over. We're now getting the fruits of that. Let us see this through. And there's excitement, not just for the Celebrinis and Misas of the world, but also these young players that are still developing, guys that are still in like the OHL, have just been drafted, or in the NCAA, like guys like Cole McKinney. And the fact that there's still so much excitement for all these different players, that also tells me that this rebuild was done right by San Jose, and that the Sharks have also just fully bought into the project. And that's a nice thing to see there in the Western Conference. But that wraps up the second segment. In the final one, we'll wrap up the show with a couple more comments here from Sharks fans. But before we do that, a quick message here from our sponsors at Locked On NHL Prospects. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, whether it be with live spreads and money lines to adjust instantly, player props update as guys heat up, and you can even bet on the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, let's wrap up the show here. And one comment I wanted to keep off for this segment, it's the longest comment I got here, very in-depth, talking about a whole bunch of prospects from Adam WP7Y, a comment that's generated an entire conversation as well with 9 replies, including my own. And he writes, "Great overview, Sebastian. Thanks. Smith just reached a point a game as you posted this. Misa could spend the next 2 weeks in the AHL with the Barracuda on a conditioning assignment, which is exactly what happened. Good call on that one. When he comes off of the IR, goes straight to the World Junior Tournament on loan. I really hope that happens. That would be great for Team Canada, and I think also for Misa. And the Sharks could get a very confident player on a high back in January. That could be a really, really fun thing to do. I love that idea personally if that ends up working out and San Jose lets him go. But I don't think anyone wants him to go back to Saginaw, as Adam writes, but he could, and anything can happen. Dickinson has taken his lumps, but his confidence shows in flashes. It's going to click later this season like Smith did last year. I've seen Musty and Chernyshov in person multiple times, and hot damn, they started slow and are now polished and unstoppable. Those two with Misa are a whole top 6 NHL line. I feel like Bstet would be well served if Wenberg extended and they played together for a year or two, but maybe that would be a luxury and not possible. They're both ideal 3Cs. Cameron Lund had a tough start with a concussion elbow to the head at the preseason rookie tournament, but he's still productive in the AHL if not driving play. Bstet should be considered ahead of Lund, even though there was some doubt over the summer. People forget, including me, that Polkamp was drafted as an overager, among others, which is classic Mike Greer shrewd. Christian Kirsch in Kitchener is another goaltender, is worth mentioning alongside Ravensburgen for their CHL status. Kirsch may have had one bad game this weekend because their numbers were neck and neck all year long until then. Hao-Shi Wang has also been productive on a terrible team and doing great. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of players to be hopeful for, and a lot of these depth pieces, you kind of have the top end of the lineup guys set for the most part. I think they definitely still want to target a top pair right shot defenseman at some point. There's definitely still a couple of these holes that need some focus, but largely with the prospect pool, those bottom 2 lines, the bottom pair of defense, goaltending, I think long term, it feels quite set. There's a lot of depth here, a lot of talent, a lot of different profiles that the Sharks are going to be able to construct the team stylistically as they think it will be most effective as well in the NHL. They're going to be able to test different guys at different slots in that bottom 6. Or also in defense there, and I think that there's a lot of players here that are going to be really important pieces long term, and have just been progressing really nicely here over the course of this season, especially. And yeah, there's a lot to like here, and just to continue with a couple last comments, because again, we had so many, and I want to make sure that if we're covering the comments, try to make as many of them get as many of them responded as possible. We have Gilmore Fan 11 writing, Sharks fan here. Misa should absolutely stay in the NHL. IMO, the Sharks have been overly cautious with him. He was only getting about 10 minutes a night when he played and never 2 games in a row. The Sharks need to stop clipping his wings. Besides injury, the Sharks' usage has been his biggest obstacle. Besides, Eklund needs a more dynamic center on that second line. To be fair, the Eklund-Wenberg second line has been a great shutdown line at the very least. Next comment, Sebcast writes, NCAA was the right path for Misa, but he stubbornly wanted to make the NHL team. I believe I have zero proof, but the optics of it are as such. I think after witnessing Gavin McKenna this year and potentially, but not absolutely wrecking his number one status, the path for players in the CHL NCAA will be you're destroying the CHL to stay until your draft year. Then, depending on your pick, number one overall play in the NHL next year. Otherwise, anything less, number two, go down, play in the NCAA with bigger, faster, better players. We saw Smith go back after his draft year. Misa should also be growing in the NCAA right now. I don't think it's as simple as first overall, second overall. I think stylistic play has a lot to do with this. Do I agree that college hockey would have been a great environment for Michael Misa this year? Absolutely. I think he would have. He'd be thriving. He'd be doing a lot better than Gavin McKenna has been so far this season. They're very different styles of players. They're different positions. Very, very different in so many different ways. But that being said, I also think that how this is going here this season with obviously the injury doesn't help and the usage wasn't great, but now going to the AHL on a conditioning stint, I don't mind that at all. I think AHL competition is a good place for Misa to be developing right now. Obviously, he cannot stay there long term. That ruling to have like U20 players playing or Canadian-based U20 prospects being able to go to and play in the AHL is only coming in for one player per team next season. But still, I do think that this conditioning stint followed hopefully by a World Juniors performance that could be exactly what kind of fires Misa up, and that the player you get back from the World Juniors after that is way too good to not have in the AHL or to not have in the National Hockey League beyond that point. And at that point, you're going to be very glad he's here rather than in the NCAA. But I don't disagree that college would have been a more than respectable option for Misa here this season. But that wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on this Sharks team, what other episode ideas you have or topics you would like me to cover on this team at some point down the road, and what your expectations would be for Michael Misa if you were to play at the World Junior Championships. I would love to hear from your thoughts down below. But if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always massively appreciated. And for your second listen, head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. Thank you again for listening. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout over at Elite Prospects, and I'll catch you tuning in again very, very soon.